What is wrong with Trident, Max?
No, I don't know enough to give an answer.
I mean, I think we were hoping to slip this into our video about Trident, so I'm kind of disappointed you didn't have a hot take on it, but I guess.
My view on Trident is it gives you minty fresh breath. There you go. There's a soundbite.
May 6th is a major day for elections here in the UK, with voters heading to the polls to choose new representatives in Scotland and Wales, new police and crime commissioners, as well as local elections and, in some cities, mayoral races. One city which is choosing a new mayor is London, currently ruled by Labour's Sadiq Khan. So with election day less than a month away, we invited all of the candidates for an interview, and luckily we kind of knew one of the candidates already, so Max Fosh agreed. You might not know Max as a politician, but rather as a YouTuber who's quizzed drunk people on the street, purchased a roundabout, faked being a model, and spoken to anti-maskers. But over the next 50 minutes, we're going to share our full conversation with Max about why he's decided to run for mayor, whether he truly wants his fans to vote for him, how he feels about politics today, and we throw some of his own StreetSmart questions back at him. Also, if you're connected in any way to any of the other candidates, we'd love to chat to them too, so feel free to email us at hello@tldrnews.co.uk. Anyway, here's our full interview with Max.
My name is Max Fosh, and I am one of the 20 mayoral candidates in the 2021 London mayoral election. I am also a online content creator, creating videos for predominantly YouTube, but also Instagram and TikTok.
Perfect. And could you give us a rundown of the kind of content it is you're normally creating?
Normally the content I create is very escapist. They're normally 10-minute videos that are intended just to make you smile and are very, very silly. They don't really ever have an agenda. They aren't offensive in any way. They're meant to just hopefully someone sits down and 10 minutes later they leave with a smile on their face. So, I often take day-to-day things that are going on around us and adapt them for my own video, normally for my personal gain. So I've done various videos where I've made my parents unwittingly sign a contract that have made me the favourite child. I have become the first YouTuber to own a roundabout. I printed my CV on my car and parked my car outside of my dream job, BBC Radio 1. So it's difficult to kind of put all of that under one umbrella, but I think the best way to describe it is 10 minutes of silliness.
And how was all of that affected by COVID and all the stuff that's happened over the last few months?
It was really hard. Because initially, like beforehand, I started doing Vox Pop stuff. So I'd be the man on the street. And I initially started at university in Newcastle, where I'd just go on nights out with a microphone and a camera and chat to people on nights out. And I then became known as the interview guy, and I would kind of go to different conventions and speak to different demographics of people. And so that was my thing. That was my niche. And on YouTube, it's audiences, I think, tend to pigeonhole different creators as certain types of creators because that's what they've come to watch, and that's totally understandable. So if you're a gaming YouTuber, you're a gaming YouTuber. And audiences, it's not that they don't like it, but they don't often come with you when you try something else. So when lockdown hits and my thing was that the interview guy, I couldn't go out and chat to people. So initially I tried, right, let's go to Zoom and let's try and do the interview format over Zoom. It didn't work at all. Like the back and forth wasn't there at all. So I had to come up with something quite quickly. And there was a 4 or 5 week period where I was like, I'm absolutely stuffed here. Like this is me done. And I got lucky in the sense that I made a series about a stock photo that I had in my bedroom. So when I moved into my apartment 2 years previously, my mum gave me a photo frame that had this stock photo of a woman in it. I never, due to pure laziness, never changed out the stock photo. And whenever people would come round, they say, oh, who's that? Is that your mum? Is that your sister? Is that a family friend? I'd be like, no, I actually have no idea who she is. And it became this kind of talking point between me and my flatmate as to who this woman was. And eventually I sat down and thought, do you know what? I'm just going to go find out who she is. She's become like a part of this part of the furniture. I want to know who this woman is. And I initially just set out thinking, oh, I'll just reverse image search. It'll be a famous model that did a shoot a couple of years ago. Bish, bash, bosh. Find her. Oh, you're in my flat. It's amazing. But what happened then was it took me 6 weeks of talking to the head archivist at Getty, going through finding stock photography experts and analysts to try to find out this person was. Anyway, this whole story was this quest to find, I called her Sarah. I ended up finding her. And I just put this out as something a little bit new on the channel, and it took a while. It didn't immediately hit, and people didn't immediately grab onto it, but over time the audience kind of like adapted and a new audience came in, and so this storytelling element suddenly got added to the channel that was so important to the channel growing going forward. So in a way, COVID was the best thing that happened to me. So it forced me to make something new, but it was also the worst thing, because that 6-week, 2-month period where I had no idea what I was doing was truly terrible. I thought my whole world was coming down around my ears.
And was it because of COVID that you were kind of forced into thinking about ideas like this? Was it the restrictions that were placed on you that forced you to even consider the mayoral candidacy, or was it something you've been thinking about for a while now?
Yeah, it's always been in the back of my mind, but I think what I like to talk to people about when it comes to YouTube and content creation, people spend so much time in the classroom trying to formulate the perfect idea, the perfect thing, and they sit down until they're motivated enough to make the thing that they think is perfect on the piece of paper, when in fact that never happens. You get motivated and you get ideas and you get more creative by doing things. So I probably wouldn't have had the kind of the idea to really go for the mayoral stuff if I hadn't spent the last year making new things and trying out a new structure. But I realized as soon as I saw a BBC News article about all the potential candidates they were going to run, and at the bottom they showed the requirements needed to run for London Mayor, and it was surprisingly easy. So I thought, do you know what, let's just give that a go. And so that's how I ended up running for mayor. I saw it, I thought, I reckon I could do this with a few help from subscribers and from people who watch the channel. And here we are 4 weeks later, an official candidate for the London mayoral elections.
So obviously there's like a lot of elections happening in May. There's, London council elections, some other mayoral elections. What specifically was it about the London mayoral election that kind of spoke to you? I mean, there's also things like the Police and Crime Commission elections and everything, but what specifically is it about the London mayoral election that spoke to you so much?
I am from London, number one. And the mayoral election is always something that's quite. I've grown up with it being quite a big part of the political world. Like, I know that it's only been an elected policy or an elected position since about 2000, and so I remember Ken Livingstone. I remember when Boris got elected. I remember when Sadiq got elected, and so it suddenly, as just a Londoner, I thought, oh, that would be a really interesting experience to just say that you're on the ballot. And I also love the idea of going into a ballot box. I mean, this is incredibly egotistical, but going into a ballot box and seeing my name as part of like the democratic world that we live in. I thought that was a really, really cool and fun idea. And then I thought, well, this will be a great series, I think. So it was all of those combination of factors, and also I wouldn't say ease, because it was a very stressful 2 weeks trying to get my name on the ballot and to adhere to all the rules. But it was possible, definitely, just by myself with a few helping hands from the community.
Yeah, and to be honest, just running for the Mayor of London is probably a good one for the title and thumbnail. If you're running to be like the new Police and Crime Commissioner, it might not make quite as good a series.
Yeah, if anything else, it's just a great title and thumbnail.
Yeah. So I was just going to ask, like, how interested are you in like London mayoral politics? Obviously, you mentioned Boris Johnson, but how much have you kept up with London politics? Like, even just more generally, like, how much do you keep up with politics on like a national level? So yeah, like, how interested have you been in politics, both like London and more generally?
I think I'm probably, if we're taking the average 25-year-old, I'm probably as engaged as the next man. I wouldn't say that I'm deeply entrenched in politics. I get all of my information where I can and try to make sure that information is as reputable as possible. I mean, thank you to people like TLDR and Simple Politics. Like, you guys are really helping, and I spoke about you guys in an interview the other day about ways that young people and the younger demographic can engage with politics. Because if we're looking previously, the way that people engage in politics is opinion pieces in the Telegraph, the Times, and the Daily Mail. So, and that's not really how young people are engaging content and are engaging media. So I wouldn't say I was I wouldn't say I was massively engaged with politics, and I would be lying to say that I was doing this for any political cause more than just it will be an entertaining series. But yeah, it is something that I've been interested in. I've at least kept an eye on in my whole adult life.
What about, I mean, I've heard you talk about this a bit in videos, but what about your policies, your plans, manifestos? If you were to become the mayor, is that something you've considered? I mean, it's obviously fairly unlikely to happen, but is it something you've thought about?
That's a very good way of putting it, Jack. I am going to be coming out with policies. Yes, I am going to be coming out with policies. But alternatively, I'm prefacing whenever I get asked the question of why do you want to be London mayor, I respond with I don't. I understand that I'm not going to become London mayor. I don't want to become London mayor. My friends and family are saying, but what if you actually do? If I actually do become London mayor, I'm in a lot of trouble. But I saw that this London mayor election as a bit of an opportunity because of the one-sided nature of it. I struggled for a long time deciding whether this was a good idea or not, whether having a platform in today's day and age is a good idea to then take away votes from other candidates. And so I've been quite transparent with that with the videos to try and say to people, look, if you want to vote for me, that's great. But please, please, please look at every candidate and make an informed decision after you've done that, because I don't want there to be a blind following with me. And whether I get 2,000 votes or 10 votes, it's not going to make a difference to me, but hopefully it will be able to engage younger people into politics. I think Britain, for some reason, our 18 to 25-year-old demographic just doesn't turn up to the elections. So I think it was something like 47% at the 2019 election, comparatively to Germany, that's 68%. So I thought, well, this is also, I mean, although I'd love to beat Laurence Fox, there is also a great angle in there to try and get kind of people to go out and vote in young people. And it's easy for the older politicians to be like, it's very important for everyone to go out and vote, guys. But that's not going to engage someone who's politically apathetic at all. There needs to be a storyline, there needs to be content, there needs to be entertainment around it. Unfortunately, I think that's the world we live in. But there needs to be a motive for someone to go and vote. And whether that motive is something fun or not, they're at least voting. And again, I want everyone to know that please don't blind vote for me. Vote for me because you think that it would be a good vote, and make sure you look at every single candidate's manifesto and policies.
I mean, kind of a few follow-up questions from that then. Firstly, I mean, as you kind of said, the main priority of this is getting a good video series. You're a YouTuber, it's kind of your job to make sure that happens. But you also noted that you wanted to engage with young people more and make sure that young people are voting more often. Is that something that you're kind of hoping will happen as well as a side effect? Have you considered how this could affect how young people vote and their engagement in politics more generally?
I hope so. And I think it might be quite naive for me to say, oh yeah, they definitely will, because I don't know. But I understand that I have a platform, and that platform needs to be done. It can be used for some positive stuff, and so although it's a externality, it's a positive externality of doing this series. Like, yes, I make some good content that people are going to enjoy and people are going to watch, hopefully. But also, if this is the thing that's going to get someone engaged with politics and the first stepping stone, then great. But I'm also not under the illusions that it's going to hugely impact voter registration. It might do, it might not. I mean, we've looked at. It was really interesting, the US elections last year, with people like David Dobrik and Kylie Jenner, who were doing fun voting registration drives that were the biggest uptick in voter registration in history, basically. So although those guys are much bigger creators, it does show that people with an audience are still being listened to.
Yeah, I understand that, but what do you say to the counterpoint to that, which is, you may be engaging people to register to vote, you are also running as a candidate. So people might who are already registered to vote decide to vote for you instead of more established candidates. I mean, I know what you're saying about the people that you raised in the US who have undoubtedly increased registration and caused more people to register to vote, but the key difference here being that they weren't on the ballot paper. So what do you say to people who will maybe criticise you for causing people who may have previously voted for established candidates to instead vote for you?
So I've got a number of it's a great question. It's one I've been asked multiple times, and I think there's one thing that I would say is that, look, everyone here is kind of 18, and by me saying, look guys, please look at every other candidate, that's totally their prerogative. We live in a democratic environment for them to understand. And also, I think that with my series, I'm not posing as a serious candidate. I'm not sitting there and being like, guys, these are my policies, I really think I'm going to be a great mayoral candidate. And I think it would be slightly condescending of people to be like, well, you're only voting because Max Fosh told you to vote. I think people have got much more agency than that. Just because some posh bloke with glasses told them to vote for him, I don't think they're going to do it. So I've been trying to really push the fact that, look at other candidates, and even if they do decide to vote for me, and this is going to be coming out in future videos, but I will be highlighting the way that the London mayoral elections work with a preference system. Like, we've seen that in every election previously, it's gone down to the top two candidates, Labour and Conservative, with the second preference. So I'm going to say, look, you can vote for me your first preference, and vote for, if you decide to vote for a Labour or a Conservative candidate and you actually want to vote for them, then put them your second preference. Because if Sadiq doesn't win by a landslide like he's predicted, then it will be close between those two, at which point your second vote will count. So the preference element of the voting, I think, does help my cause in that again, to say to people that you don't have to waste your vote.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've kind of answered my follow-up question there, which was going to be about the the preferential voting and whether you would encourage people to vote for you first and to be else second. But as you say, I think you've already sort of you've addressed that point. So I'll move on to the next question, which was you brought up earlier a little bit about policies, and I was going to ask. Obviously, you've already said that you're sort of a non-serious candidate. I think that's a fair comment to make. Are you going to be coming out with serious policies that if you were to win, that you'd enact, or are you going to follow in the footsteps of other parties such as I think it was the Monster Raving Loony Party, which came out with some sort of like joke manifesto? Are you going to be doing something more like that, or are your policies going to be more sort of serious?
I think I will probably be going towards the latter. I mean, are you talking about, I think, Count Binface there, you're talking about, he's got some great policies. I mean, all croissants in London to be under £1. I think that's wonderful. Tower Bridge should be named to Phoebe Waller. I think that's also a great idea. So no, I think I haven't quite come to that point yet. But I think that they will be more on the entertaining side. For example, I really think that all DLR carriages should be the front carriage, because everyone enjoys the front carriage. So I think that's a real policy that should be implemented, and the DLR should look at with a lot of seriousness. So there'll be similar policies to that, Ben. Whether that answers your question of whether they're serious or not, I think that's for you to decide.
And on that, I guess, is the political side of stuff something you're kind of avoiding here? I mean, obviously, as a YouTuber, you don't necessarily want to polarize your audience. And I guess, based on your demographic, there might be some similarity of viewpoint. But is that something you've considered, that you're kind of avoiding talking about the political side of stuff for risk of upsetting and polarizing your audience?
I don't think it's something that I'm avoiding, but it would be adding an extra layer to a series or to this whole story that I didn't intend to be in the first place. I've said previously that the intention to run, my intentions for running are very clear, and so I don't see them being much value in adding those serious political policies, because I think policies just generally are always wonderful. I mean, if you're it's always a good idea when it's been put down on a piece of paper. Whether it comes to it in fruition, I don't know. And I think, unfortunately, politics is quite it's an aggressive medium. It's an aggressive place. It's become very tribal in whichever party you subscribe to, and I don't think that doesn't fit in with the ethos of the channel. So I'm going to do as much as I can, which I think aligns with who I am as a creator. But then I think that if you really want to engage in politics, there are those parties there for you to look at and see what policies are and see whether you want to support them. So I'm more of kind of hopefully being the guiding hand, the gentle nudge into the world of politics, and thus for you to make your own decision, rather than being like, guys, I think we should do X, Y, Z.
One of the things you clearly are going for then, if it's not policy goals, is to try and beat, or I guess annoy, Laurence Fox. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Why do I want to run for Mayor of London? Well, historically, there is always a posh bloke on the ballot, and so I thought I'd fulfill that quota. But on this occasion, I'm not alone. A chum who went to the same school as me, albeit not at the same time, Laurence Fox, is also running to be London Mayor as part of his new political party, the Reclaim Party. He's also got about £5 million in backing. Both Laurence and I are as qualified as each other to be London Mayor. I think we both competed in the sixth form debating society.
Oh, old Loza, what a man, what a boy. Loza and I, we don't know each other particularly well, and we've only met the once. But Loza and I we're two posh boys. We both went to Harrow School, which has been well documented, not at the same time. But we're basically just two guys with no political experience, who have just kind of been given everything on a plate their whole lives. So I thought, you know what, if there's anybody that I can run against, it would be Loza. Let's just give Laurence a run for his money. To look at it from another point of view, I'm also interested to see what social media can do in the political landscape. We talk about influencers influencing people. So how is it going to affect a general election? I mean, a mayoral election. We look at, for example, if you go on YouTube and you look at the Conservative, Labour, Lib Dem, Green, all of their YouTube presences, I've got a bigger YouTube presence than all of them combined. And in an election which is being encouraged to be online because of COVID and because of restrictions and to reduce human-to-human contact, that's quite interesting. I think just even from a political theory point of view, if we're getting very serious about it. But with Laurence, it's purely, hey, old chum, do you know what, Laurence and I, it'd be nice to have a candidate to run against in the election.
So is there anything on like policy that you disagree with Laurence Fox on, or is it?
If I'm honest, Ben, I haven't even looked at his policies.
Yeah.
I'm just up against Laurence for a good time.
And I mean, you mentioned the application process, and this is actually something we've talked about before, is potentially us making a series where one of us runs to be an MP. And we thought it'd be interesting to see what that process is like. And I think our audience would be interested for you too, what the process has been like and any particular hiccups or hurdles for running to become the mayor.
So this was what I found the most interesting and what I actually kind of enjoyed the most and also the least. So normally to become a mayoral candidate, you need to find 10 elected, 10 voters who are on the electoral register from all 32 boroughs in London plus the City of London. So normally that would be 330 signatures, 10 from each place plus the City of London, in which they sign and you get their electoral number, you hand it into City Hall along with your £10,000 and say, I would like to be a mayor nominee. That's what happens normally. With COVID, they wanted to reduce the amount of contact that campaigning teams were doing. So they reduced that number from 10 to 2. So I then needed to find just 66 signatures from people, and that was I think I could do that with my online following, and I reckon I can do that. Now the issue came, it's not just as much as getting the name and the signature, you then have to find the electoral number. So the number is assigned to you, I think you don't even know what it is when you go to vote, but it's assigned to you by your borough. For their record keeping purposes. Now, if you are a party, if you're a political party, you get given the electoral roll from all the boroughs just by being a party. So you get an enormous booklet with the numbers. So all you need to do is I go, right, Jack Kelly, name, signature, K Kelly, okay, that's your electoral number. Ben Blissett, okay, easy. So if you're a party, it's relatively straightforward. You just need to essentially find 66 signatures. Now, as an independent, you can only access those electoral numbers through the boroughs themselves. Now, normally they keep a list of the electoral register in the local library in each borough. Now, they're closed. So how does one access the register? So it meant I had to email all 33 boroughs once I had the names and the signatures for the number. Now, that was a thing that my face dropped, because I initially thought I was going to have to go into all 33 borough town halls and get them manually, but eventually London Elect said no, because that would be too difficult for independent candidates. We are allowing you to email the boroughs individually to get the responses. Now, then that left me with a situation of, God, that's a lot of work. So that's when I got involved, like 15 volunteers from Instagram, from the channel, I gave them each 3 boroughs and said that these are the names, the signatures, go and find those numbers. Pester, like hound, just email as much, because you can imagine talking to boroughs is quite tricky. So getting a response was an absolute nightmare. Some of them honestly responded in 5 minutes, like City of London, just like that. But then others, I mean, who was quite bad? Barking and Dagenham they took 4 or 5 working days. So once I had all those, I then went into City Hall for an initial check. So basically, this is for them to check against the pre-ones they have, and then to decide. Obviously, some of them were wrong. They were either not on the electoral roll from the 1st of March or blah, blah, blah. So then had to go in round 2 again and had to get another 15 signatures that basically failed the first time. And then I could hand it in before the 29th, I think it was the 29th of March at 4 p.m, along with my £10,000 deposit. So that was the process. Now, I think that's why we're seeing so many individual candidates, well, a record number of 20 candidates this time, because it's just 2 signatures needed from each borough rather than 10. And if you don't have that big party machine behind you, I can imagine it'd be very difficult to get 10.
And if it had been 10, do you think that would have put you off? Would that have stopped you from doing it?
I think that would have been enough to put me off. I really do think that would have been enough to put me off, especially as I found out after about the electoral numbers. I think if it was signatures, I think I could have done it. It would have spent like a week, a couple of hours in each borough, and really just like being a bit boring. But then getting the numbers, the numbers were far harder to get than the actual signatures. So if it had been 10, I wouldn't have run.
So do you think that the fact that there is a record number of candidates on the ballot paper this year, do you think that's a good thing? Do you think that's sort of like helpful, or? I
think it can only be a positive thing, can't it? I mean, it's more representation of more people. I mean, it's a greater option. I have to say, like, I'm quite positive about the process of it, because if one does really want to run, then you can do it, regardless of whether you've got any political experience. It's not as easy as ticking a box and being like, cheers. It shows that there needs to be a little bit of application from your part to show you're serious about it, but not too much that it alienates anybody to run. So I actually am quite I wax lyrical quite a lot about the process and how it does exactly what it says on the tin and allows anyone to exercise the democratic right to run for office.
And if certainly this year the hurdle doesn't seem to be getting the signatures, with you only having to get 2 per borough, then clearly the biggest hurdle would be that £10,000 deposit you mentioned.
Yes.
Could you maybe tell us a bit more about that? You obviously talked about it in your video as well, saying you're unlikely to get the money back because of the requirements to get the deposit back. But is that something you've considered? Is that kind of just an investment in the series, or how are you thinking about that £10,000?
Yeah, so the deposit is £10,000, and you get that back if you get 5% of the first preference vote, which is from the last election, it was about 155,000 votes. To give you an idea of how many people get the election, their deposit back, I think in every election there's been since 2000, only 3 parties have got their deposit back: Labour, Conservative, and I think Green. The Green Party just got their vote back last time. And if you consider the size of the Green Party, the fact that they're getting 5.4% of the vote, it just shows that deposit is gone. Bye-bye. But I think that I'm just purely viewing it as an investment. I've often been thinking, I often hear about YouTubers and people say, oh, you need to reinvest back into your content, reinvest. And I was always wondering how, is it me just going to more places and flying to more events and that kind of thing? How can I reinvest? And I thought, well, this is the perfect opportunity. And it allows, I've realized that series content is something that an audience really enjoys, because it allows them to get behind something and to dip in and out where they can and enjoy as much as they like. It was a risk that the series itself was a good enough idea. That was a risk, but hopefully I've found enough angles in the series to be able to open up a few more different storylines. So do I expect to get the £10,000 back? Probably not. I expect maybe to lose £2,000 or £3,000 because I'll make a bit of money back from the AdSense of the videos, but that's okay. I think that it's a great series that will be something that I think people talk about, and something that I can kind of hang my hat on for a while, as that was a series I was really proud of, and I'm sure that it's going to get me a lot more exposure, and not just generally from YouTube, but from kind of the mainstream media and people in mainstream entertainment who might not have heard of me before and say, oh, but there's this guy who's also doing this. Have you checked out a few of that? And like, we're already seeing that. I got Jack Whitehall, for example. I drove past him on the street and he had seen the video and recognized my car, snapped a picture and put it on his Instagram story. So suddenly that's being and that's 2.5 million people that he's got on there. So it suddenly allowed a storyline to be seen by a lot more people.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, we were talking about this earlier, but even if you weren't to make that money back in AdSense, just this opportunity as like a portfolio piece, as brand building, getting your name out there, it's clearly super valuable, and it's a cool thing to be doing.
I probably will, I'm going to do a video, in which I just decide, was it worth it? So I'll just literally go through the ad revenue from all the channel, all the videos that I've made thus far, and just tot it up. Have I lost money? Yes or no? Because I think audiences do really like that. There is a very mystifying element to how much YouTubers make, and what their income is like. So it will be just an exercise, just hopefully of transparency to the audience. But I do expect myself not to make it back.
I mean, you've talked about in your videos how your flatmate is acting as your campaign manager. What about the strategy wider than that? Do you have other people involved in your team? Do you have plans with other creators?
Well, the plan campaign-wise is purely just to keep making storylines that I can talk about in the video. It makes it interesting. It makes it exciting for people to watch. I think there is another YouTuber who has joined the ballot, a YouTuber called Niko Omilana, who is far bigger than me and has got probably one of the most kind of dedicated fan bases on British YouTube, if not all of YouTube. And he's running as an independent candidate as well. Initially, that was something that really frustrated me, because I thought, I don't think in any way that he stole the idea, purely because the amount of work it needed, and I don't think he would have had enough time. So he definitely didn't steal the idea, but it was frustrating initially to think, because he's suddenly got a lot bigger profile, and so everyone's like, oh, this is amazing, this is a really good idea, vote Niko. So although it's definitely going to affect my voting numbers, it's probably objectively a good thing, purely from a point of view of kind of having another YouTuber who I'm sure, well, hopefully, I'm not sure what his plans are, but hopefully I can get involved and do a collaboration with him, whether that's a debate. I've had an idea and asked him to do a debate, which I think would be great. So whether I collaborate with him or not, that's a different point. That's a different matter. We have got different audiences, I think. So I'm sure that it will be only a good thing in the long run.
So do you see yourself as being able to beat Niko?
No way.
Do you see more as like a rival to Laurence, or is Laurence more of your sort of your mayoral rival?
No. My rival's still Loza. Loza's still the one I've got my eye on the prize on. But Niko is gonna blow me out the water, definitely, in terms of just is. And I think, again, what I was saying earlier, I really think that he's going to get a huge proportion of young people, the youth vote, to turn out. I reckon. I mean, I can't say for sure, but no. If we're looking at who's going to win between Niko and I, Niko has definitely got my trousers down every day of the week.
It will be interesting to see how it shakes out. And I mean, as you say, there's definite benefits for you both doing it. I think even just you showing up in thumbnails and in suggestions next to his content, and kind of the crossover there, is beneficial. So I think ultimately you're probably almost better off having you both do it against each other, no matter who ends up actually winning in the vote.
Exactly. I mean, I'm getting a lot of his, like, for his movement is he parodied the EDL by making his own version called the NDL, the Niko Defence League, and so his audience comments NDL, Niko for Mayor, NDL. On my videos, which thus helps the comments, which I'm sure helps the algorithm. So although that they are wishing me the loss, they're still inadvertently helping the cause.
So did you find out after you announced your candidacy that Niko was winning?
Yeah.
Was that sort of the timeline of events?
Yeah.
Okay, so did you, when you found that out, did you sort of worry that, I mean, I know earlier we were speaking about, the preference system, the fact that people get 2 votes, in the London mayoral election. Do you worry that because there are now like 2 YouTubers running, that potentially some people who, might not be as interested in politics might put, maybe you first preference, Niko second, or vice versa? Do you worry that I know earlier you were saying that you wanted people to maybe, if they were going to vote for you, choose you as the first preference, and then maybe put like a more serious candidate as the second preference? Do you worry that because Niko, is running, that might have, cause people to vote for two YouTubers for both their first and second preference?
I think it's a good question, and I think it totally depends on what Niko's running for, what his angle is. I think that I have slightly fulfilled my end of the bargain of like, yes, this is a joke and this is a bit of fun, but also, guys, take this seriously. This is a part of our democratic process, and I think that's a question really for Niko, because I don't know. Yes, I found out when the what they called London Elects released the official candidates, and I thought, oh god, of course he's on it. I'd heard nothing from him beforehand. I didn't know he was doing it, and then he posted something on Twitter a couple of days later. But I think that's for Niko to kind of do on his end of the bargain. I mean, I have no idea what he's going to be doing, whether he's going to be also saying this is relatively serious. I'm sure he is, because he's a very fastidious creator, and I think he knows what he's doing. So I would be surprised if he didn't, but if he doesn't, that's his prerogative. And I think he's been able to run as part of a rules, and he's abided by the rules, and so that's up to him. So I a lot of people have asked me about the elements of the alternative candidate stuff, and I think that it's also a bit of a British tradition. If we think of like going back, ever since I've been born, in the 26 years I've been on this in the UK, there's always been the monster raving loony party who wanted to carpet the M1, and we've got Buckethead, who used to be known as Binhead. So there is a history of alternative candidates, Al Murray, for example, and I think that only strengthens and furthers that tradition. Do I think it actually affects an election? No, but you never know. You can never be too sure.
On that point too, I guess, I was just thinking, has this specific race played into your decision making?
Yes.
The fact that Sadiq Khan is expected to win by some margin, and it's not a particularly close race, is that something you took into account when making the decision, or would you have done it regardless?
The two things I took into account was what the bookies were saying, who's going to win, and the voting system for the London mayor elections. If it had been a single tick box, that's your candidate, and it had been a close race, I wouldn't have done it, because even if I'm swaying the vote by 1,500 people, that could have a serious effect on the election. But when Sadiq was, I think he's something like 1 to 33 odds on, and when the second favourite candidate is Brian Rose, who's like 12 to 1, Sean Bailey, Conservative candidate, something like 25 to 1. I'm thinking, okay, we know the outcome of this election before it started, so I feel slightly safer in doing this.
So yeah, no, I sort of spent my my bank holiday Monday going through some of your old StreetSmart videos, trying to find basically anything even vaguely political. So yeah, I thought maybe an interesting thing to do today would be to ask you some of the questions that you asked people on the street about anything sort of vaguely political.
Oh no.
So obviously earlier you spoke a little bit about policies, and when I was watching these videos yesterday, I wrote down one of the quotes from you about the environment, which was,
"Who's got 2 thumbs and loves the environment? This guy."
Ask you some of the questions from that. So the first question I wanted to ask you was, what is global warming?
Global warming is the I'm going to try and make the Collins Oxford Dictionary definition. Global warming, I think, is the sustained increase in temperature on the Earth's surface due to human activity.
Do you recycle?
I do. Yes, I do. I do recycle, and I separate my foodie bits from my plasticky bits and my cardboardy bits. So yes, I do try to recycle.
Fantastic. So you pose this next question as more of like a definitive. So you said there is going to be a water shortage in 20 years. What are you going to do to prepare for it? And then you asked, are you going to shower less?
I will try to. The thing is, I've got my political hat on, so I don't know how silly I should be. Whether I should answer it properly is like get water saving shower heads and to choose carefully with your water supplier. But no, I think one of my potential policies could be potentially carbonating the Thames. I think it'd be great to have some sparkling water at your beck and call. It's always nice when you're at a restaurant and have some sparkling water. So how am I going to prepare? I don't know. I don't know is the answer. Hopefully the big brainy people who are working on that, the scientists, can give a better answer.
So these questions are from your Chip Shop Chaps politics video.
That was my one and only foray into political commentary, like politics and stuff. And I realised that, look, do you know what? I can't.
Yeah, no, I think this was the only one, which is a shame because there were some really good politics questions in there that I would have liked to sort of ask you more of in this. But yeah, no, I'll go with the first one from that, which was
What's wrong with Trident? They give people minty fresh breath.
what is wrong with Trident, Max?
I don't know enough to give an answer. The reason I asked that particular question was purely because it was a joke. Like that's what you'll find a lot with the StreetSmart questions. That I ask the question is actually totally irrelevant. It's just a vehicle for me to give a crap joke.
I mean, I think we were hoping to slip this into our video about Trident, so I'm kind of disappointed you didn't have a hot take on it, but I guess.
My view on Trident is it gives you minty fresh breath. There you go. There's a soundbite.
So the next question in that video was, what does the phrase left-wing, right-wing mean, is what you asked people. So I suppose, I mean, I ask you that question, and then it probably makes sense to ask you, do you consider yourself sort of on that like spectrum of left-right? And if so, sort of where do you place yourself?
I think that's very interesting. That is one thing that I am relatively okay to talk about, because I do feel that politics has become incredibly tribal, and it's almost become like a football team. Like you support your football team to the bitter end, whether win, loss, or draw. And I don't necessarily think that's particularly conducive for kind of harmony, or it's not particularly conducive for conversation, because if you're left wing, or let's say if you support if you are a Labour supporter or a Conservative supporter, the other side will immediately ask you your opinion on something that particular side has done that hasn't gone particularly well. And so obviously a lot in an attempt, I feel, to kind of trick you and be like, see, you're wrong. Whereas I don't think that is a particularly conducive thing for conversation. I think we should be talking about which policies have done well and which policies haven't done well for both of those parties. So I think, look, it's what is left wing or right wing. It's a type of political ideology. Where I sit on that is changing all the time. It's always depending on different factors.
So is it more the case that you're like, you know, in this election, that you're deciding not to sit on the left-right spectrum anywhere, but you know, in your personal life, you do sit somewhere, you know, between left and right, and you're just choosing not to do that for this election? Or is it genuinely that in your personal life you don't sit anywhere on the left-right spectrum? You're just sort of taking each issue and election as it comes?
I try to with each election that comes around. I look at, as I said, that I tell to people, I look at every policy and that each manifesto from each party and the state of the country and what I think would be the best situation for the country. And that's how I make my political decisions when I do go out and vote. So yeah. So
the next question in that video was, what do you think qualifies you to be Foreign Secretary, which is what you asked people. But I suppose for this video, it makes more sense to ask you, what do you think qualifies you to be London Mayor?
The qualities that mean I'd be a good Foreign Secretary is that I still remember my GCSE French oral. I think that's probably the best. But other than that, I'd be absolutely terrible.
So I somehow think we're probably not going to get a proper answer to this next one. But I'll ask it anyway and see if you do want to answer it. Do you think we should bring back capital punishment?
In London specifically?
In London specifically, no comment there.
Yeah, no, I expected as much, to be fair on that one. The next question you asked people, which I suppose is more of a serious one for this video, where do you get your political ideas from?
Yeah, and I think the reason I said that is because I wanted to make the joke about the kind of the echo chamber that is social media, and I think that it is like it's a relatively serious point, but it's also it's not a surprising point. I think when people say it, they say it as if it's this awful thing that, oh my God, how can my social media profile just be an echo chamber of either the left or the right? So, well, it makes total sense. Like, you're part of a demographic and you're obviously going to engage with things that you think is correct. So I think I asked that question because of the joke. But I try to again get as much information I can from reputable sources and make informed decisions, and objective information and data is often very, very helpful for this. And again, people like you guys in Simple Politics are really, really helping on that front, and just providing things like, okay, this is the facts and this is what we think we should do about it. Because I think feelings change and sentiments change a lot all the time, and so trying to deal with a problem with all the information is just very important. So that's what I try to do.
I think perhaps us asking these questions like this rather proves your point about StreetSmart not working over Zoom during COVID.
Exactly.
Well, I hope you appreciated the questions regardless.
I think it also kind of shows why Max asked the questions and not me, to be fair.
It also shows the power of editing, guys. Honestly, it's like I've had a few people come and watch me film a Street Smart episode before, and they just kind of stand there for about 2 hours. Like, what? This is it? It's like, yes, this is it. It's all in the editing. I get 2 hours of footage for 4 minutes.
So a couple more questions, I think, and we've mainly gone through the serious ones, or as serious as we got. Firstly, are you planning on voting for yourself when it comes to election day?
Absolutely, Jack. That is the exciting. I'm hoping to be able to take a ballot with me. I don't think they'll allow me to do that, but I think if I kind of give a smile to the person at the ballot box, like, please, I'm one of the candidates, can I take this home? It'll be interesting to see whether they let me. But yes, I will be definitely voting for myself.
I mean, for your wall, what a superb thing to have.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, but I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to get one otherwise. I'm sure that if I ask nicely to somebody after the election, they'll be able to dig one out for me.
At very least, I guess you could make sure you had a high-res image of it that you could print out or something. Secondly, though, when you do go to vote for yourself, will that be on May the 5th or May the 6th?
It'll be on May the 6th. For Laurence, if you are listening, my darling boy, it is May the 6th. I know you got a little bit of a tricky one on May the 5th. No, it is May the 6th. I'm so sorry to say.
On the 6th of May? Remember the 6th?
The election's actually on May the 5th, isn't it? Yeah.
Remember the 6th? Yeah. Yeah, I am.
I love it.
Okay, perfect. I think that's about everything. Is there any last thing you wanted to say to our audience, whether that's for your candidacy or more generally?
No, but if you want to watch the series, please dive in at any point. Hopefully it's going to be entertaining, but also a little bit eye-opening, and some people in the comments be like, this is the most I've learnt about the political system in this country for a long time. So hopefully if you want to learn a little bit about it as well, jump in. But again, if you would like to vote for May the 6th, please do. But also make sure that you look at every candidate and decide which candidate is best for you. And actually what I am expecting is to get quite a few second preference votes. And so what I've been thinking to myself as to whether, if, for example, I do beat Laurence on a cumulative of both first and second preference, whether that counts as me getting more votes than him. I think that's a conversation that I'm going to have to have at a later date.
And one last thing quickly before you go on that. Are we expecting a lot more videos on this? Are there a handful more videos? What's kind of the plan with releasing video schedule?
Guys, I've got 10k to make up, so let's just keep churning them out. So yeah, I've got a video that I'm filming actually later today, a tier list of all the press that has been written about me. I'm going to be thanking Jeremy Hoskins and Mr. Laurence Fox because they are inadvertently paying for my campaign by advertising on my YouTube channel with their party. So I'd like to do something really lovely for Jeremy and Laurence. Maybe get them a cake and deliver it to their headquarters. Maybe something like that might be happening the next couple of days. I don't know for sure. But yes, I will be trying to make as much content as I can, but without suffocating the audience and bashing them over the head with this series.
Okay, perfect. Well, sounds like we ought to get some coverage of you out pretty quickly so we can be involved in today's video. But anyway, good luck with the series, with your mayoral run and everything else. Thanks again to Max for speaking to us, and let us know what you think of YouTubers running for mayor in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a new video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that's in the description.